So here's a number that might stop you in your tracks. Roughly 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will develop cancer at some point in their lifetime, and a lot of that comes down to genetics and honestly just plain bad luck. But here's the part nobody tells you. A huge percentage of cancers, some estimates say up to 40%, are actually preventable. So while you can't rewrite the genes you were born with, you absolutely can influence how those genes behave. And one of the most powerful levers you have, something you control multiple times every single day, is the food you put on your plate. Because cancer isn't purely a genetic disease, it's also a metabolic disease and an immune function disease. And the wrong foods, even ones we've been told are perfectly normal or even healthy, can quietly create the exact environment that cancer needs to take root and thrive. So in this video, I'm going to break down the science of how certain foods may feed cancer cells, and I'll give you a simple framework to avoid the worst offenders. I'm Dr. Thomas, and on this channel I cut through the noise and give you evidence-based information on metabolic health, longevity, and how to actually take control of your body. Let's get into it. First, let's set the foundation, because you need to understand how cancer operates before you can understand how food fuels it. Cancer begins when a normal cell turns abnormal. Just a single mutation, and mutations happen constantly, every day in all of us. Most of the time, your body catches these errors and repairs them or destroys the faulty cell. But sometimes a mutation slips through unrepaired, and that cell starts growing out of control. For that rogue cell to survive and spread, though, several things have to line up. First, cancer cells need glucose as their primary fuel source. Second, they need hormones to grow, signals like insulin and IGF-1 that flip on growth pathways. Third, cancer thrives on inflammation, which breaks down your body's natural barriers and suppresses your immune system, your first line of defense against these cells. And finally, cancer needs a blood supply, which it builds through a process called angiogenesis, essentially hijacking your body to grow new blood vessels that deliver nutrients straight to the tumor. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many foods in the modern diet directly support every single one of those steps. But here's the empowering flip side. Once you understand this, you can use food as a weapon. You can either feed cancer or you can starve it. Let's start with one of the most potent naturally occurring carcinogens ever discovered, aflatoxins. These are toxins produced by certain molds that grow on grains, corn, and especially nuts. The foods to be most careful with here are peanuts and tree nuts like almonds, walnuts, and pistachios. Now let me be crystal clear. I am not telling you to stop eating nuts. Nuts are genuinely good for you. The issue is contamination. You want to avoid nuts and grains sourced from hot, humid climates where mold thrives, and you have to watch out for the sneaky downstream exposure too, things like peanut butter and almond butter, which can be made from nuts that never got a thorough mold inspection. So to minimize your risk, look for brands that don't source from humid regions. Inspect your nuts and toss any that look discolored, shriveled, or off, because that can be a warning sign of mold. Try to eat nuts within about a month of purchase and always respect those expiration dates. Roasting peanuts and pistachios can also reduce aflatoxin content, though it won't eliminate it entirely. And here's a hidden pathway most people never consider. Aflatoxins can sneak into your diet through milk and dairy. Some animals eat aflatoxin-contaminated feed like corn, and a specific type called aflatoxin M1 gets secreted right into their milk. So be especially cautious with milk from cows fed untested grain, or with unregulated raw milk and dairy products. Next up, and this one won't shock you, foods high in sugar and processed carbohydrates are strongly linked to increased cancer risk, particularly breast cancer, colon cancer, and possibly pancreatic cancer. And the reason is simple. Cancer cells love sugar. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine your body is made of trillions of tiny engines, your cells. Normally, these engines burn fuel beautifully, using oxygen to extract enormous energy from every bite you eat. But cancer cells are broken engines. They're inefficient, sloppy, and they burn through fuel at an absurd rate. Their favorite fuel? Sugar, more precisely, glucose, the sugar your body extracts from bread, pasta, candy, and soda. This is partly explained by something called the Warburg effect, where cancer cells choose to burn sugar rapidly even when plenty of oxygen is available. Cancer doesn't care about efficiency, it only cares about growing fast. And here's where it gets worse. When you eat foods that spike your blood sugar, your body releases insulin and IGF-1. In normal amounts, these hormones are fine, but in excess, they send a loud message to your cells: grow bigger, divide faster. So now you've got a double whammy. You're feeding cancer its favorite fuel, and you're simultaneously blasting out the growth signals that tell it to multiply. We see this dramatically in breast cancer, where some studies show cancerous cells carry up to 6 times more insulin receptors than healthy cells. And if that weren't bad enough, excess sugar drives chronic inflammation, which causes more DNA damage, making it even easier for cancer to appear in the first place. That same inflammation also weakens your immune system, your body's primary defense against these cells. So the bottom line is that cancer is sugar hungry, and we can turn that against it. Limit sugar wherever you can, with the worst offenders being processed and high glycemic carbohydrates. Instead, prioritize low glycemic, high fiber carbs like beans, whole grains, vegetables, and berries. And if you drink regular soda, that's the lowest hanging fruit imaginable. Swap it today for water, tea, or even diet soda. Now, there's real controversy around diet drinks and artificial sweeteners and cancer, but that's a nuanced topic I'll tackle in a future video. Now let's talk about processed meat and red meat, and I want you to hear me out carefully, because the science here is far messier than the scary headlines suggest. There are tons of studies and meta-analyses showing an association between high intake of processed meats, think ham, bacon, sausage, hot dogs, or red meat like beef, pork, and lamb, and cancer, especially colorectal cancer. But here's the critical caveat. Most of these are observational studies. They show association, not causation. Researchers track what people eat and see who develops cancer. And yes, the heavy meat eaters got more colon cancer. But did those same people also smoke more, exercise less, or eat fewer fresh foods? Did the low-meat eaters simply have better health care and healthier habits overall? That's called the healthy user bias, and it muddies everything. That said, there are genuine mechanistic reasons to be cautious. Many processed meats contain nitrites, preservatives used to cure and flavor them. In your stomach's acidic environment, nitrites convert into nitrosamines like NDMA, a known carcinogen linked to stomach cancer. On top of that, how you cook meat matters enormously. Grilling, frying, or barbecuing at high temperatures creates compounds called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, both shown to damage DNA and promote cancer in animal studies. So how do I put this together? The correlation is real, but looking at the totality of imperfect evidence, I'm not fully convinced red meat itself is the villain. I suspect the bigger problem is what red meat replaces. When you fill up on meat, you're probably eating less fiber, fewer fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains. And we have solid data showing higher fiber intake correlates with lower risk of several cancers and a 13% reduction in cancer mortality. So I'm not telling you to give up steak. Just don't overdo it and load up on fiber at every single meal. Next, alcohol. And here the evidence is genuinely strong. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classified alcohol as a Group 1 carcinogen all the way back in 1987, meaning there's sufficient evidence it causes cancer, specifically of the mouth, throat, esophagus, and liver. It's also associated with breast cancer in women and colorectal cancer. Alcohol drives cancer through several mechanisms. First, your liver metabolizes it into acetaldehyde, a toxic compound that directly damages DNA and then sabotages your body's DNA repair machinery. Second, alcohol causes vitamin deficiencies, lowering thiamine, which is essential for healthy mitochondrial function and energy metabolism, and impairing folate absorption, which leads to more DNA synthesis errors. And on top of all that, alcohol acts as a solvent, actually enhancing the absorption of other carcinogens, like those from tobacco or NDMA, deeper into your tissues. So there's no gentle way to say it. When it comes to cancer risk, less alcohol is always better. Now, this is far from a complete list of every food connected to cancer risk, and I want to hear from you. If there's a food you're curious about that I didn't cover here, drop it in the comments below, and I'll make sure to address it in a future video. But if you take away just one framework from everything we covered today, let it be this. Cancer needs specific conditions to survive. Fuel from sugar, growth signals from excess insulin, fire from inflammation, and a blood supply to keep feeding it. Almost every dietary choice you make either supports those conditions or fights against them. You don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to live in fear of your plate. What you need is awareness. Cut the sugar bombs, be smart about how and where you source your nuts and dairy, don't overdo the processed and charred meats, drown every meal in fiber, and keep the alcohol in check. These aren't dramatic sacrifices. They're small, repeatable decisions that stack up over years and decades to genuinely shift the odds in your favor. Remember, you can't control the genes you inherited, but you have enormous influence over how those genes express themselves, and food is one of your most powerful tools. So use it wisely, feed your body, and starve the disease, and you'll be doing something incredibly meaningful for your long-term health. I hope this was helpful and gave you a clearer picture of how to eat with intention. Stay healthy, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.